kicked to the curb, but I bounced back. How my mother's betrayal taught me to rise from the ashes and turn the tables on her, and then, it's crazy how life can flip on you in an instant. One moment, I thought I was on solid ground, and the next, I was falling through a trapdoor I didn't even know existed. I'm Jason, and at 23, I thought I had a handle on life, or at least on my family. Spoiler, I didn't. Growing up, my mom, Gloria, was this larger-than-life figure. She was the kind of mom who loved reminding you of all the sacrifices she made, whether you asked or not. I gave up everything for this family, she'd say with a dramatic hand to her chest, like she was auditioning for a soap opera. And me? I believed her. After all, she was my mom. You don't exactly grow up thinking your own mother might be plotting against you. Things really started to go downhill after my dad passed away when I was 16. He was the glue in our family, the calm to Gloria's chaos. When he died, everything changed. Gloria tightened her grip on me, becoming more controlling and dismissive of my independence. But I figured she was just grieving. So, I swallowed the frustration, buried it deep, and tried to be the good son she expected me to be. Fast forward to last year. My dad had left a small inheritance in his will for me. A modest sum, but enough to give me a head start on my dreams. I had plans for that money. I wanted to build an app I'd been working on since college. It wasn't just about the money. It was about making something that was mine. Gloria had other ideas. One night, she sat me down at the kitchen table with her serious mom face on. "Jason, we need to talk," she said, sliding a stack of papers toward me. "It's about your dad's money. I know you think of it as yours, but it's really for the family." I blinked at her. "What do you mean?" "Dad left it for me, and I'm sure he didn't mean for you to waste it on some app thing," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "Jason, we're struggling. There are debts you don't know about. I need you to trust me." That should have been my first red flag. But, like an idiot, I let her reel me in. She played the guilt card like a pro, throwing in every tear and sob story she could muster. "I sacrificed everything for you, Jason. I just need this one thing." By the end of that conversation, I was signing over control of the inheritance to her. She promised it was temporary, that it was for family unity, whatever that meant. I didn't even read the fine print. She was my mom. How could I not trust her? A month later, I came home from work to find all my stuff packed in boxes. Gloria was standing in the living room, arms crossed like she'd just won a game I didn't know we were playing. "What's going on?" I asked, panic bubbling up in my chest. "You need to leave," she said flatly. "It's time for you to grow up and stop being a burden." A burden. That word hit me like a slap to the face. "But what about the inheritance? The money?" "It's gone," she said, cutting me off. "Used it to pay off debts. You should thank me for keeping this family afloat." I was speechless. She didn't even look sorry. If anything, she seemed smug, like she just taught me some kind of twisted life lesson. With nowhere else to go, I ended up crashing at my best friend Tyler's place. Tyler had been my ride or die since middle school, the kind of guy who could make you laugh even when your world was falling apart. When I told him what happened, he didn't even hesitate. "Dude, my couch is your couch," he said. "But damn, your mom? That's cold." Cold didn't even begin to cover it. Over the next few weeks, as I started piecing my life back together, I realized just how much I'd lost. My dad's money was gone. My relationship with my mom was in shambles, and I was starting from scratch. But as much as it hurt, a tiny part of me felt free. For the first time, I didn't have to live under Gloria's thumb. I could make my own decisions, even if they led to failure. So, I got to work. I picked up shifts at a local coffee shop during the day and worked as a delivery driver at night. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something. Tyler kept pushing me to focus on my app idea, but I wasn't ready yet. The betrayal was still too raw, and I was scared of failing again. Meanwhile, Gloria didn't seem to care that she'd left me homeless and broke. If anything, she seemed relieved to be rid of me. I heard through the grapevine that she was throwing lavish dinners and talking about taking a trip to Europe. The debts she cried about? Apparently, they weren't as dire as she'd made them out to be. That realization lit a fire in me. I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to prove her wrong, to show her that I wasn't the burden she thought I was. And maybe, deep down, I wanted her to regret what she'd done. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning. Gloria's betrayal was the first blow, but it wouldn't be the last. And as much as I wanted to move on, she wasn't done with me yet. Rebuilding your life from nothing isn't glamorous, no matter how many motivational quotes you scroll past on Instagram. For me, it started with early mornings brewing overpriced lattes for cranky customers and late nights delivering food to people who barely tipped. But as exhausting as it was, I clung to one thought. I was free. Free from Gloria's manipulation. Free to figure out who I was without her constant voice in my head telling me I wasn't enough. Tyler, bless him, was my rock. He let me crash on his lumpy couch without asking for a dime, even though I knew his job as a mechanic didn't exactly leave him rolling in cash. Every night, he'd listen to me vent about work, about Gloria, about how I felt like a complete failure. And every night, he'd remind me, dude, you're not done yet. You've got that app idea. That's your ticket out of this mess. At first, I didn't want to hear it. Working on the app felt impossible when I could barely scrape together enough for gas and groceries. But Tyler's words stayed with me, gnawing at the back of my mind. Maybe he was right. Maybe I wasn't done. That's when I met Avery. She walked into the coffee shop one afternoon while I was mopping up yet another spilled caramel macchiato. She wasn't flashy or over the top, just a girl with a sharp smile and a laptop covered in stickers that screamed, "Tech nerd." She ordered a black coffee, a rarity in a sea of pumpkin spice addicts, and sat in the corner typing furiously. I couldn't help but notice her. She had this energy, like she was always 3 steps ahead of the world. I wasn't planning to talk to her. I mean, I was just the guy cleaning tables. But fate, or maybe just my clumsy ass, had other ideas. While I was wiping the table next to hers, my elbow knocked over her coffee, sending it cascading across her keyboard. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," I blurted, grabbing napkins like a madman. To my surprise, she didn't freak out. She just laughed. "Relax, it's waterproof." Perks of being a programmer. I'm paranoid about spills. That little moment of grace led to a conversation, and that conversation turned into hours of talking after my shift ended. I found out she was working on her own tech startup and had already launched 2 successful apps. She wasn't just ambitious. She was the kind of person who made you believe anything was possible. When I told her about my app idea, a platform to connect freelancers with short-term projects based on skills and location, her eyes lit up. "That's actually brilliant," she said. "Why aren't you working on it?" I hesitated. "I don't have the time or the money." She shook her head. "You don't need $1 million to start. Just build a prototype. Get it out there. The rest will follow." Her confidence was contagious. For the first time since Gloria had pulled the rug out from under me, I felt a spark of hope. That night, I dusted off my old laptop and started sketching out the app again. I didn't know if it would work, but at least I was trying. Over the next few months, my life became a juggling act. I was still working 2 jobs to stay afloat, but every spare moment went into the app. Avery became my unofficial mentor, giving me feedback and cheering me on when I wanted to quit. She even helped me find free resources online to learn the coding skills I needed. It was exhausting, but I hadn't felt this alive in years. Then, just when I thought things were looking up, Gloria reappeared. It started with a voicemail. "Jason, it's your mother. We need to talk. Call me back." I deleted it without a second thought. After everything she'd done, she didn't get to demand anything from me. But Gloria wasn't one to take no for an answer. A week later, I came home to Tyler's place and found a letter taped to the door. It was from a lawyer, claiming that I owed Gloria money for family debts and threatening legal action if I didn't pay up. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't have a dime to spare, let alone money to fight a legal battle. And the worst part? The letter wasn't just a scare tactic. It included a document with my signature, the one I'd signed months ago when she guilted me into handing over the inheritance. I hadn't even read the fine print. "She's got some nerve," Tyler said when I showed him the letter. "After everything she's done, she still wants more?" Avery was equally outraged. "You can fight this," she insisted. What she's doing is manipulative and probably illegal. I wanted to believe her, but the odds felt stacked against me. Gloria had money and connections. I had a half-finished app and a part-time job slinging lattes. The power imbalance was glaring, and I didn't know where to start. But then, Avery dropped a bombshell. "My cousin's a lawyer," she said. "Sophia. She's sharp, and she loves taking down people like your mom. Let me talk to her." That was how Sophia entered the picture. She was younger than I expected, only a couple of years older than me, but she had a presence that made you instantly trust her. When I explained the situation, she didn't even flinch. "Your mom's case is flimsy at best," she said. "She's trying to intimidate you into backing down. But if you're willing to fight, we can win this." Hearing her say that lit a fire in me. Gloria had taken so much from me. My inheritance, my home, my sense of security. I couldn't let her take anything else. With Sophia's help, I started gathering evidence to prove her manipulation. Old text messages, emails, even witness statements from Tyler about how she'd kicked me out with no warning. At the same time, I threw myself into finishing the app. If I was going to fight Gloria, I needed something solid to stand on. I worked late into the nights, fueled by anger and determination, until finally, the prototype was ready. When I launched the app, I didn't expect much. Maybe a few downloads, a couple of curious users. But within a week, it started gaining traction. People loved the concept, and word spread faster than I could have imagined. For the first time in months, I felt like I was winning. But as I soon learned, Gloria wasn't done with me yet. The legal battle was heating up, and behind the scenes, she was working with someone I never expected to betray me. Momentum was finally on my side. My app was gaining users, my confidence was growing, and for the first time in forever, I felt like I was clawing my way out of the hole Gloria had thrown me into. But with every step forward, it seemed like she was 2 steps ahead, ready to drag me back down. The legal battle wasn't just stressful, it was draining. Gloria wasn't backing down, and her lawyer, a smug guy named Harrison, was relentless. Every day, Sophia and I exchanged emails, texts, and phone calls about the case. Gloria was claiming that the money she had taken from me wasn't just inheritance. It was a loan, and now she wanted me to repay it with interest. It was absurd, but the papers I'd stupidly signed gave her just enough leverage to make my life hell. Sophia wasn't deterred. "This is classic manipulation," she said during one of our late-night strategy calls. "She's banking on you folding because it's easier than fighting. But if we expose her lies, she doesn't stand a chance." I wanted to believe her, but Gloria wasn't just pulling legal tricks. She was getting personal. I started hearing from old family friends, people I hadn't talked to in years, asking why I was dragging my mother through the mud. Apparently, Gloria had been spreading stories about how ungrateful I was, how I'd abandoned her after everything she'd done for me. It was infuriating. She was painting herself as the victim, and some people were buying it. But the worst blow came from someone I never expected, Madeline. Madeline was a close family friend, practically an aunt to me growing up. She'd been around for all the big moments in my life, from birthdays to graduations. When my dad died, she was one of the few people who seemed genuinely supportive. So when I found out she'd been helping Gloria, it felt like a knife to the heart. I discovered the betrayal by accident. One night, Tyler and I were going through my dad's old files, looking for anything that might help with the case. That's when we found an email exchange between Gloria and Madeline, dated just a few weeks before I'd been kicked out. In the emails, Madeline had encouraged Gloria to take the inheritance, claiming I was too immature to handle the money and that it would be better off in Gloria's hands. "She played you," Tyler said, shaking his head, "and she's probably still playing you." I didn't want to believe it, but it made too much sense. Madeline had always been close to Gloria, but I thought she cared about me, too. Knowing she'd been part of the plan to cut me out of my own future was almost harder to swallow than Gloria's betrayal. Fueled by anger, I confronted Madeline the next day. I showed up at her house unannounced, shaking with a mix of rage and heartbreak. "How could you?" I demanded as soon as she opened the door. "You knew what she was doing, and you helped her?" Madeline didn't even try to deny it. "Jason, you need to understand," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Your mother was just trying to protect the family. You've always been a dreamer, and that's fine, but dreams don't pay the bills. She did what she had to do. Her words hit me like a slap. Protect the family? By stealing from me and throwing me out? What kind of logic is that? Madeline sighed like I was being unreasonable. You're young. One day, you'll see that she was right. That was it. I stormed out, vowing to cut her out of my life, just like I'd done with Gloria. But even as I slammed the door behind me, a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about money. Gloria wasn't trying to protect the family. She was trying to control it. And for some reason, Madeline had willingly played along. As the legal case dragged on, I started noticing other cracks in Gloria's story. For one, the debts she claimed to have used the inheritance to pay off didn't add up. Sophia and I dug into her financial records, legally, of course, and it turned out that most of the money had gone to luxury expenses, designer clothes, fancy dinners, and a down payment on a second home. She's been living it up while you've been scraping by, Sophia said, disgusted. This is exactly what we need to show the court. It's proof that she manipulated you. But Gloria wasn't going down without a fight. She'd roped in another ally, Brandon, an old rival from my high school days. Brandon was the kind of guy who thrived on other people's failures, and apparently, he'd found a way to insert himself into my business. I started hearing rumors that he was developing an app almost identical to mine. Worse, he'd somehow gotten wind of my launch strategy and was racing to beat me to market. At first, I thought it was just bad luck. But then I found out the truth. Brandon had been getting insider information from Gloria. She'd been feeding him details about my app, hoping to sabotage me and force me to come crawling back to her for help. It was a devastating blow, but it also lit a fire under me. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting to prove to Gloria, to Brandon, to everyone who doubted me, that I could succeed despite their efforts to tear me down. With Tyler and Avery's help, I launched a counterattack. Tyler used his mechanical know-how to help me upgrade my app's functionality, while Avery worked her magic to drum up buzz on social media. Meanwhile, Sophia filed a motion to block Gloria's legal claim, arguing that she had no right to the inheritance given her misuse of the funds. The weeks that followed were some of the most intense of my life. I barely slept, juggling the app launch, the legal battle, and my own simmering anger toward Gloria and her allies. But slowly, things started to shift. My app was gaining traction faster than Brandon's, and Sophia's legal strategy was poking holes in Gloria's case. For the first time, it felt like I had a real shot at winning. But just as I started to believe I might come out on top, I discovered a shocking twist. Sophia had a connection to Gloria that she hadn't disclosed. She wasn't just my lawyer. She was Gloria's estranged niece. When I found out Sophia was Gloria's estranged niece, I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. The person I'd been relying on to help me fight my mother was actually family. Had this been her plan all along? Was she just another pawn in Gloria's manipulative game? I confronted Sophia immediately. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded. How could you not mention that you're related to her? Sophia didn't flinch. She leaned back in her chair and met my glare with a calm, steady gaze. Because it doesn't matter, she said. I cut ties with Gloria years ago for the same reasons you're dealing with now. She's toxic, manipulative, and completely self-serving. Trust me, I'm on your side. Her tone was so confident, so matter-of-fact, that it disarmed me. Still, doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. You could have told me from the start, I said, my voice softer now but still laced with suspicion. How do I know you're not working with her? Sophia sighed. I get it, Jason. You've been burned by just about everyone who's supposed to care about you. But I'm not Gloria. I left that part of my life behind for a reason. If you want me off the case, say the word, but I promise you, my only goal is to take her down. I stared at her, trying to read between the lines, to see if there was any hint of deception in her eyes. There wasn't. In the end, I decided to trust her. What choice did I have? If Gloria had been trying to use Sophia against me, it wasn't working. In fact, Sophia seemed more determined than ever to expose her aunt's schemes. And we were making progress. The deeper we dug into Gloria's finances, the clearer it became that her case was built on lies. Sophia uncovered documents showing that Gloria had deliberately misrepresented the family debts she'd used to justify taking my inheritance. Instead of paying off any meaningful liabilities, she'd funneled the money into a series of lavish purchases and a few shady investments. Meanwhile, Tyler and Avery were my lifelines. Tyler's loyalty was unshakable, and Avery was a constant source of encouragement. "You're going to win this," she told me one night as we sat on Tyler's couch, strategizing ways to protect the app from Brandon's sabotage attempts. "You've already come so far. Don't let her drag you back." But Gloria wasn't done dragging. She escalated her tactics, going so far as to show up at one of my app's promotional events. She strolled in like she owned the place, all smiles and fake charm, making a beeline for the reporters who'd gathered to cover the launch. "Jason's app is a wonderful idea," she told them, loud enough for me to hear. "I'm just so proud of everything he's accomplished. Of course, it wouldn't have been possible without the sacrifices I made to get him here." I saw red. It took every ounce of restraint not to march over there and call her out in front of everyone. But Avery grabbed my arm and whispered, "Don't give her what she wants. Stay calm." She was right. Gloria was trying to bait me into an outburst, to paint me as the ungrateful son she'd been portraying to anyone who'd listen. So instead of confronting her, I quietly pulled Tyler aside and asked him to escort her out. He was more than happy to oblige. But Gloria's stunt wasn't without consequences. A few reporters approached me after the event, asking for comments about my complicated family dynamic. It was clear she was trying to undermine me publicly, to plant seeds of doubt about my character. It was infuriating, but I refused to let her derail me. The next big breakthrough came when Sophia managed to get Brandon into a deposition. Under pressure, he admitted that Gloria had fed him insider information about my app, hoping he'd beat me to market. It was a damning revelation, one that strengthened my legal case and gave me leverage against both of them. But there was still one piece of the puzzle missing: Madeline. She had been a key player in Gloria's initial scheme, and I knew if we could get her on the record, it would be the final nail in the coffin. The problem was, Madeline was as slippery as they came. She refused to answer our calls or respond to subpoenas, and I was starting to think she'd disappear altogether. That's when Sophia came up with an idea. "If she won't come to us, we'll go to her," she said. "I've got a contact who can set up a mediation meeting. It's not legally binding, but if we play our cards right, we can get her to slip up." The mediation was tense. Madeline showed up in her usual haughty fashion, acting like she was doing us a favor just by being there. But as Sophia pressed her with questions, her composure began to crack. She tried to dodge and deflect, but eventually, she slipped up, admitting that Gloria had manipulated me into signing the inheritance papers under false pretenses. Gloria said it was for the family. Madeline snapped, clearly frustrated. Jason would have wasted it on some pipe dream. She was just trying to do what was best. That moment was like a thunderclap. We had it, proof that Gloria's actions were premeditated and based on lies. Sophia wasted no time adding Madeline's statements to our case file, and from there, the dominoes started to fall. With Gloria's credibility in shambles and Brandon exposed as a saboteur, the tide was finally turning in my favor. My app was gaining momentum, attracting investors, and the legal case was leaning heavily in my direction. But I wasn't naive enough to think Gloria would go down quietly. Sure enough, she made one last desperate move. In a shocking twist, she staged a public press conference, claiming I was unfit to run my business due to emotional instability. She even produced fabricated evidence, emails and messages she doctored to make me look unhinged. It was a low blow, but it backfired spectacularly. Sophia and Avery worked together to expose the fabrications, and the public quickly turned on Gloria. Instead of tarnishing my reputation, she ended up destroying her own. By the time the dust settled, I'd won. The court dismissed Gloria's claims. I retained full control of my app and its growing success, and the truth about her manipulation was finally out in the open. But the victory wasn't just legal or financial. It was personal. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free from Gloria's control. As I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, looking out at the city lights, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Tyler, Avery, and Sophia were there with me, celebrating the end of a long, brutal chapter. You did it, Avery said, raising her glass in a toast. You turned the tables. I smiled, thinking about how far I'd come. Gloria had tried to break me, but instead, she taught me how to rise from the ashes. Victory was sweet, but it wasn't simple. Winning the legal battle and outmaneuvering Gloria felt like climbing Mount Everest, but the scars she left behind weren't going to fade overnight. The public fallout from her fabricated press conference was brutal. She turned herself into a punchline, but part of me wondered if she even cared. Gloria always found a way to twist the narrative to suit her. She'd likely convince herself she was still the victim. But for the first time in my life, her opinion didn't matter anymore. After the court's ruling, things moved fast. My app exploded in popularity, with investors lining up to offer funding. I finally had the resources to hire a proper team, expand the platform, and turn my dream into something tangible. It was surreal. Just a year ago, I was sleeping on Tyler's couch, delivering pizzas to scrape by. Now, I was the CEO of a company that had real potential to change the game for freelancers everywhere. Tyler was thrilled for me, of course. "Man, I always knew you'd pull this off," he said, clinking his beer against mine one night. "And hey, if you need a guy to handle, I don't know, car repairs for your employees or something, I'm available." Avery, ever the pragmatic visionary, helped me stay grounded. She became an unofficial co-founder, offering advice and challenging me to think bigger. "You've got something special here," she said one night as we worked late in my new office. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Not investors, not competitors, and definitely not your mom." It wasn't always easy to leave Gloria in the past. She tried reaching out a few times, leaving tearful voicemails about wanting to rebuild our relationship. I never answered. Not because I hated her, though I'd be lying if I said I didn't still feel a pang of anger, but because I knew any contact would just pull me back into her toxic orbit. For once, I was choosing myself over her. Then came the bombshell. I got an email from Sophia one afternoon, marked urgent. Attached was a news article. Gloria had sold her second home and was claiming bankruptcy. According to the article, she was blaming me for her financial troubles, telling anyone who would listen that I'd ruined her life. I should have seen it coming. Gloria never admitted defeat. If she couldn't win, she'd rewrite the story. "What do you want to do?" Sophia asked when we met to discuss the situation. "You could counter this with a public statement or let it blow over." I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to fire back, to lay out every detail of what she'd done and show the world who she really was. But then I realized something. I didn't need to. I'd already won. Gloria's attempts to smear me were a sad, desperate grasp for control she no longer had. "I'm not saying anything," I told Sophia. "She can scream into the void all she wants. I'm done giving her power over my life." Sophia nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "Good choice," she said. "I think you're finally free." As I focused on the app, my personal life started to flourish, too. Avery and I had been dancing around our feelings for months, caught up in the chaos of the business and the legal battles. But now that the dust had settled, there was nothing holding us back. One evening, after a long day of strategizing, I finally worked up the courage to tell her how I felt. "I don't just want you as my partner in business," I said, my voice shaking a little. "I want you as my partner in everything." She didn't hesitate. "I was wondering when you'd say that," she said with a grin, leaning in to kiss me. With Avery by my side, Tyler cheering me on, and Sophia as a trusted advisor, I started to feel like my life was finally my own. The app continued to grow, evolving into a thriving platform that helped thousands of people find work and connect with opportunities they never thought possible. Every success was a reminder of how far I'd come, and how Gloria's betrayal had ultimately pushed me to become stronger. But the final confrontation with Gloria came sooner than I expected. One evening, I was walking home from the office when I saw her sitting on the steps of my apartment building. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in spirit. The Gloria I'd grown up with was larger than life, a force of nature. This woman looked tired, her designer clothes rumpled and her makeup smudged. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. "Jason," she said, her voice trembling. I just want to talk, I sighed, debating whether to just walk past her. But something in her eyes stopped me. I sat down on the step, keeping a safe distance. What do you want, Gloria? She flinched at my use of her first name, but quickly recovered. I've lost everything, she said, her voice cracking. The house, the money, my reputation, everything. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm still your mother. Can't we start over? I stared at her, trying to reconcile the broken woman in front of me with the manipulative, selfish person who had tried to destroy me. Part of me wanted to believe her, to think she was finally ready to change. But I knew better. Gloria didn't apologize, she calculated. And this, I realized, was just another attempt to pull me back under her control. I don't think we can, I said finally. You've taken too much from me, and I've worked too hard to get here. I hope you figure things out, but I can't be part of your life anymore. Her face crumpled, and for a second, I thought she might cry. But then her expression hardened, and I saw the familiar glint of anger in her eyes. You'll regret this, she said, standing up. You're turning your back on your own mother. I didn't respond. I just watched as she walked away, her heels clicking against the pavement. This time, I didn't feel guilt or anger. I just felt free. That night, I sat with Avery on the balcony of our new apartment, the city skyline stretching out before us. I told her about the encounter, and she just smiled, taking my hand in hers. She doesn't define you, Avery said softly. You do. Looking out at the lights, I realized she was right. My past had shaped me, but it didn't own me. Gloria had tried to break me, but in the end, she'd only made me stronger. I'd built something real, something mine, and no one, not her, not Brandon, not anyone, could take that away. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. My future was mine to forge, and I was ready to face whatever came next.